Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Krishna, and also thank you very much for this opportunity to present my research here. I do hope you can understand my English. It is with a strong Danish accent, I'm aware of it, but I really hope that you can follow it anyway. Krishna, I was trying to figure out how long we actually had known each other, and my first thought was that is almost my whole life, but I believe it cannot be true. But we have had a long history together in electrokinetics and have met at many conferences and have shared interests. So I'm also a bit excited to hear if you can could have any interesting comments on this topic, because I think it's quite close to your heart also. And all your audience, I've tried not to put too much in here because I'm really interested in hearing your opinions and ideas and comments at the end of the presentation. I was already introduced, and thank you very much for your kind introduction. Well, it's almost an abstract I made for a title because I was so excited to put a lot of stuff in here. So this will be focused on incineration ashes as secondary resources, and then I'm going to talk about the scarce elemental resources we have there that we can extract, and then also if there's some of these ashes which afterwards could be recycled into construction materials. Yeah, just if you were not aware, Denmark, I'm from Denmark. This is in the northern part of Europe here in the circle here. So this is where I'm situated, and this is part of our university, the Technical University of Denmark. And right now I'm actually at a conference, and I'm here at the Faroe Islands. And this is really exciting to be here because it's totally different than in Denmark. But this is not everyday life. Everyday life for me, that is in Denmark and close to Copenhagen. And everyday life for me also includes this group here. This is my section. It's a section for construction materials and durability. And we are all of us working hard, of course, but also working towards a circular economy in the construction sector. So this is where the topic here also came in with the construction materials. I would like to have a fly into this presentation, and here I would like to just take a brief look at the planetary boundaries from the Stockholm Resilience Center. You can see here you can see the links, and where I have links in the slides. That's because it's not mine, but you can go and find it for yourself. And read more there. And this one just say, you can see at least that these are the planetary boundaries from how we exceed them from 2009 and then until, no, I have something in front here. 2023, and we can see on the red colors that it is simply going the wrong direction. There are things that we simply need to learn to undo, and then there are other things that we really need to learn how to do. Another way to look at it could be that we could look at the Earth Overshoot Day. It is this year, it's the 5th of July, and it means that this date we have actually used the resources that we are allowed to. You could say that the Earth can actually regenerate as people, as citizens, and at the globe Earth. That is already here this year on the 5th of July. And well, what we are using after the 5th of July, that is overuse. So we simply need to look into the way that we're using resources, and that is the topic of my presentation today. And I will also say that one of the things that we can look into, that is to close the loop, simply to look at the secondary resources, today's waste. Is this actually tomorrow's resources into, well, products and materials? And now we are approaching the topic for today, ash generation. Ashes are generated all over the world. Now I look at Europe because this is taken from a European project called Ash Cycle that we are in, and we are looking at how can we actually valorize these ashes from sewage sludge incineration, municipal solid waste incineration, which is both bottom ashes and fly ashes, and then biomass ashes. These are the focus of this project, and we are looking into how can we actually use them. In my presentation today, I have limited myself to sewage sludge ash and municipal solid waste incineration ashes. If you look at the map, you can see that we have incineration all over Europe. It's it's different incinerations that we have in different countries, but still it is in every country. And we can also see that municipal solid waste incineration, it fills up a lot of the volume of these ashes, the bottom ashes here, because this is a reddish brown color. So we have a lot of it in Europe. And you can see over here we have some, the current numbers which we could seek up in this application when we made it, that we had this megatons here per year produced in Europe. So in a circular economy, how do we actually look at incineration? And now I'm again back in Europe, and I'm happy to hear that there are people from all over the world. You probably have other systems than we do, but now we're looking into the European system. And we are talking a lot about circular economy and how do we actually place incineration in the circular economy. And right now it's placed where I have the arrow, that is on other recovery. So it is really low, this is the waste hierarchy that I've shown here, which we use for a lot, where we should prevent waste first, and then we should prepare it for reuse, and we should recycle, and then, okay, here we go, other recovery, that is incineration, if we have energy recovery, and otherwise it's called disposal together with landfilling. So this is where it goes today and where it is, and what we would like to do in this presentation. I would actually like to move incineration here so it could be called recycling as well. I'm from Denmark, as I told you, and we are a country who really like to incinerate. We incinerate, actually we import waste to incinerate. And what you see on the photo over here to the right, it's the newest incineration plant. It's really huge, and this is one of the places where we import waste to incinerate. It's actually so huge that we have a ski slope on top of it. So if you visit Denmark, you can go skiing on top of the waste incineration plant. That's not the topic of today, going skiing. We are going to look at what is the vision for this incineration towards the circular economy. And our vision is that we can recycle raw materials from these ashes. What you see here to the left, it is that we have waste, or it could also be sludge that we incinerate, and we gain energy out of it, and then we get the ashes, which very often are problematic. Some of them, we actually skip them off to Norway or to Germany because we don't have places where we can actually landfill them or use them in Denmark. So they go into, for example, salt mines in Germany. I believe this is not really the best version of us, not to handle our waste ourselves. So the vision is that we go to the lower part here of the picture. And the first one, that is electrodialysis, which I will talk about in a minute. But this is a method where we treat the ash and we separate it into elemental resources and then mineral material, which can be used in construction materials. So what you will hear about today is how far are we in the mission we have. I put this one on because for me it's important to say also here that the electrodialytic methods, it's driven by power, electricity, and that we of course hope that it will be powered by renewable energy. It uses a DC current, and renewable energy like wind or solar energy is actually producing DC current, so we would not have to transform it into AC current. We could take it actually directly from the renewable energy sources. So electrodialytic treatment, this was this treatment method that I put there, and this slide, I don't want to necessarily to get the overview here because I'll take some of the different setups that we have developed. This slide just showed that it's not one type of experiments that we are running. We have over the years been developing quite many different setups, how to do electrodialysis, and we combine them to get, to target either elements or target the best quality of the mineral, the ash after it is treated. So we can pick different cells depending on what it is that we want to obtain. It can either be, and it's not very often we do this anymore, it was only in the beginning that we put it there as a compacted material and then we water saturated it. Right now we are suspending all the ashes that we're treating, we are suspending them and treating them as a suspension. So that is important to know. I'll show you the cells as we go along as you need them. Now Krishna is here and he also knows, It's not here. Yeah, here you go. That there is electrokinetic. When we talk about soil remediation, we very often talk about electrokinetics. And the difference between electrokinetic treatment and electrodialytic treatment, it is that in electrodialysis, we are using ion exchange membranes. And this is not used in electrokinetics. And there's very little research done on electrokinetic treatment of ashes. And these are the cells that I found in literature which have been used there. And you can see these are in consolidated form with water and not with the stirred system. So most is done in literature is done, actually I would say it's 80% which has been published is done as electrodialytic treatments. So now just a bit more on this ash cycle project that I talked about in the beginning, where the numbers of ashes were from. It's an European project, and it's called Integration of Underutilized Ashes into Material Cycles by Industrial Urban Symbiosis. I would like to just mention it briefly. It's a quite large project, and here you see all the partners. We are actually 27 partners in the project, and we are approximately half through. And what is very interesting in this project is that it is recycling of ashes, of course, but it's recycling dependent on the different geographies and the different. It depends on industrial symbiosis, so it's very locally founded. You could say we are trying to find a toolbox where you could apply to different localities of what you have. The project is also interested because we have pilots, so we are making construction materials in pilot scale in this project as well. So we go out of the laboratory, which is not so often that we do. But what we do here, the project starts over here, over here where we actually do have the ashes, where we have incinerated biomass waste, as I said, and sludge, gotten energy out of it, and then the project starts here, where also our vision started, which I showed to you. And first, I would say that this is a very important point because what we figured out, or what we knew before, but we really saw it in this project where with a lot of partners, it is that we simply characterize ashes so different. It's so difficult to compare, and you can hardly extract anything from literature because everyone is doing their own characterization scheme. So in the project, we have developed a characterization scheme which we suggest, it's agreed on by the partners, which we suggest researchers to at least use some of these methods. So we can compare, in literature, and we can actually extract and have a huge amount of data. This is, as I said, difficult today because we all of us use different methods. So this was some of the first things we did. And then what we are doing now is that we are producing construction materials and we are recovering resources. And at DTU, our part is to recover resources and afterwards use the ash into construction materials. Some of the other groups are using the mostly non-toxic ashes directly into construction materials as secondary resources. And these are the work packages. It's a bit complicated, and I will not go through it. I just want to mention again, it is this industrial urban symbiosis, so it's very local. You could say it's targeted at a local audience. And what we have is we have a work package here on recovering the valuables, which we are leading at DTU, and then we have a very large work package here on the different materials that we can use. We can produce construction materials that we can produce from the ashes. So now I go to the first ash, which I promised you to talk about, and that is the sewage sludge ash. You can see it here to the right. It's really red, and it's because at the wastewater treatment plants, we often dose iron chloride there to precipitate phosphorus and keep it into the sludge. And when you incinerate it, you get a very high concentration of iron oxides, and this is, of course, what gives us the red color. There's much more interesting things to say about the sewage sludge ash than the color. Well, here we can see the main by XRD, often we see that the main fraction of this sewage sludge ash is quartz hematite, as I just talked about, with whitlockite, which is calcium phosphates, and then we have calcium carbonates. And if you go to the small box I have here to the very left corner, you can see that there can be a quite high phosphorus content in these sewage sludge ashes. Actually up to 10, or even more than 10% per weight can be phosphorus in them. It's always a high content, but it can be really high, as you can see. And actually this, in the range of these ashes, it's in the same range as phosphorus mines. It is on the lower end of the phosphorus mines, but there is an overlap there in concentration. So you could say that this could actually be, compared to concentrations, regarded as a mine. Then I put some concentrations of heavy metals there, and please see that these are in milligrams per kilogram and not in grams per kilogram, so it is much, much lower than the phosphorus content. But still, it is a bit problematic because, of course, we do not want to spread these at farmland. The idea is to produce a nutrient. Phosphorus is such a scarce resource, we should really take care of it, and therefore we should take it from secondary resources to the fields again. But we should not spread it with the heavy metals. And there are different procedures to extract phosphorus, and many of them are based on extraction in acids. And what I show here is a graph where we have suspended sewage sludge ash at different pHs. It's in nitric acid. And then we see how much which percentages of these are actually solubilized. And here we can see that, okay, if we go low in pH, we solubilize phosphorus, but we can also see that heavy metals comes along. So that means that when you extract it in acid, you will have to treat it afterwards to separate phosphorus and heavy metals. In the electrodialytic method, which we developed, it's extraction and separation of these two phosphorus and heavy metals at the same time. And here's a two-compartment cell, which we have most recently actually developed. It was patented in 2014-15. So it's not that new, but it is a new cell that we actually designed, and then we are using the others still in the research, of course. Here you can see in the compartment to the left where I've placed the anode, I have the suspension of my sewage sludge ash, and then I have a cation exchange membrane separating this compartment from the other compartment here with the cation, allowing all the cations, including these heavy metals, to pass through here. And that means that over time, I acidify my ash here from the reaction here at the anode, where you can see we are producing acid. So I acidify my suspension. And then when these heavy metals and phosphorus are released, as I just showed you, the phosphorus will stay because it's either negatively charged or uncharged if we go low enough in pH. But the heavy metals are, most of them, positively charged, so they are transported out of this solution. So what we have at the end here, it is that we have two products in this compartment here. We have a solution with phosphorus, high concentration, and then we still have the ash here, which is not totally dissolved. About 50% is left. After this treatment, 50 to 60% is left. So we have these two resources to take care of here. And at first, I'd like to see how well is the separation actually. And what you can see here is, again, here to the right, you can see a very naive picture, a sketch of the cell. You can see we have the anode compartment and the cathode compartment, two different colors. And over here on the graph, you also have a gray color, and the gray color shows what is left in the ash. And we can see that most of the phosphorus in these experiments were extracted. In these, it's actually some of the first experiments where we extracted about 90%. If we carry it on long enough, we'll extract 99%, but then, the extraction rate will, of course, decrease a lot by the end. So we normally say that it will be about 80 to 85%. That is, it can probably be economically feasible. So we can see that all the phosphorus stayed, as I had hoped for in my previous slide. It stayed in this compartment here, in the anode compartment, and then the heavy metals, most of them are, which are extracted, are removed into the cathode compartment. So the separation is quite nice. I can see, as you can see, that something is left, but if we remember how small concentration we actually had of the heavy metals compared to the phosphorus, it is really, really low concentrations. So what we did was that we, of course, asked ourselves, how clean is this phosphorus product? Now it was a solution, and therefore, we evaporated it or evaporated the liquid phase, and then we got some crystals. They looked like this. My very nice technician came into the office and said, "What do I do with this?" It was, some white thing on the bottom of a petri dish. I took a photo, and then it looked like this. And then we got the year's Christmas card, as you can see. Immediately after, or shortly after, it did not look this nice anymore because it's extremely hygroscopic, because it's phosphoric acid. Most of it is phosphoric acid. What we have there, here you can see the major elements there. We have a lot of phosphorus, as you can see. Most of it is phosphorus. We have a little aluminum, almost no iron, and we also have some calcium. So there's also calcium phosphate and alumina phosphates, but most of it, as you can calculate here, most of it will be phosphoric acid. Then you could also look at the heavy metals, and in regard to nutrients, it's mostly cadmium that we are very concerned of. And in this salt here that I produced here, I have less than 4 milligrams of cadmium per kilogram of phosphorus. And if you look at European fertilizers or fertilizers used now in Europe, you can see that the average is 138 milligrams per kilogram of phosphorus, so it's significantly higher. So you could say that this is really, you cannot see that from these numbers, but I can tell you that this is the cadmium concentration, which is at the very lower end of what we are actually already now using as fertilizer. So here's a product which could be actually used. It's we need to figure out how we can, how should we handle it right now. Well, I don't evaporate the water, which would probably not be feasible economically. I have a suspension which is about 3% of phosphoric acid, and the companies who would like to take it would like it to be 10%. So of course now we're optimizing it, but this is optimization on the concentration that we're doing because we can already use the product as it is. So we were very happy about this result, and we therefore decided to try to make it a bit bigger, because what I showed you before, that is 5,200 grams. And it's a stirrer, and a stirrer takes a lot of energy, so we try to scale it up a bit. And I know some of you will be laughing when I say scale it up, but here it can go to 3 kilos, and for us in the lab, it is a scale up, and I am totally aware that we have 10,000 tons of this type of ash in just Denmark alone each year. So we of course need to scale it up a bit more than this. But what this is a new way to make the cell. Before I showed you that we had 2 compartments next to each other and then separated by an ion exchange membrane. And what this tube is, it is a tube which perforated, and then the outer side of it here, the white thing that you can see, that is the ion exchange membrane. And then we have the ash inside this tube. And then the cathode compartment, that is the container where it's placed into. And then this tube, it can be, it's turning 150 degrees from time to time, and time to time, that means we can time it. That's what you can see to the right here. We can time how often it should be turned. So instead of stirring it, we're simply turning this tube upside down from time to time. And then we have the anode in the middle, and we have obtained exactly the same good results in terms of extraction here, but the energy consumption is actually much less, and this is because here we have more membrane area over the mass of ash. It's higher here, so therefore we have less. We have a smaller resistivity in the system, and therefore it's more efficient. We can also treat much thicker suspensions here. You can imagine that with the stirrer, it has a limit to how feasible can it be if you need to stir something which is really thick. This is almost sand, so it costs a lot of energy to stir it. But here it's not the same, because it's much easier, even though it's a heavy and have a low liquid to solid ratio. Then it's much easier to do it in this way here, and this means that we can have a stronger concentration of phosphorus at the end of the treatment here. Also, if we have a higher liquid to solid, lower liquid to solid ratio. This was published in this paper. So from now, we leave the phosphorus. The phosphorus is there. It's close, very close to being implemented. And then we will go to the construction sector and see what about the ash. Could we actually maybe use that into the construction sector? And here I'll just tell you very briefly that 50% of all extracted materials in Europe, they are extracted to be used in constructions. And these numbers, the next ones, are not for construction materials in general. It's about resource extraction. This is about resource extraction in general. 50% of the total greenhouse gas emissions, that's due to resource extraction, and 90% of the biodiversity loss and water stress is also due to resource extraction in Europe. So that's why we should really think about it. Also the resources, not only greenhouse gas emissions, but also the material resources. And here, the ash, after being treated electrodialytically, we have shown that it is actually a quite good product into concrete. You can see here that it turns red. The lower row here, that is where the sewage sludge ash has been treated with our method with electrodialysis. Non-treated is on the top. and it's different concentrations there. And you can see that it's much more red in the lower part, and that's because what we are dissolving, it's not the iron oxides, because they are almost insoluble in acid, so they concentrate while we're dissolving other stuff. So that's why it's red there. But it showed quite good properties, this concrete here. But I would actually say, even though we had good results, I would say it's probably a better product in bricks. So these are baked clay bricks here, where we also have shown that it can be used. You can replace, depending, of course, on what you want to use the bricks for, but 50% of the clay, which is also a scarce resource, 50% of the clay can actually be replaced by these by this treated ash, but I would say maybe 30% is more realistic, but still it is a high amount of replacement. And now we have also valorized it. We have a PhD student who did the bricks that you're looking at the picture, and she's working on exactly this topic. So we hope that this is where the sewage sludge ash after treatments can be valorized into these bricks. So it means now that we have phosphorus for agricultural land, and we have the ash, the treated ash, for the bricks or the concrete. And what we have left now is the small amount of heavy metals and other things, that other cations that we removed into the cathode compartment. And this one we'll of course have to take care of. It's not in my presentation here so much, but this is what we have left from the whole ash now. Now I'll turn to the municipal solid waste incineration ashes. And here I would like to say that they contain this. Sewage sludge ash was sort of relatively easy to work with, but I would say these ashes, it's totally different, because they contain everything. And once I tried to look up what does impurity actually mean, and it is the fact that the substance is dirty or lower in quality because it is mixed with another substance or something that causes this. And I would say, okay, this is just a mix. So maybe you could say that these fly acids, it's only impurities. I don't know, but it's really all these elements that you find in them. And some of those you find, they are critical raw materials. And now we're again back to the in Europe, because this picture here, it shows these critical raw material, it shows which are the critical raw materials in Europe. These are, you can see, it's red dots. On the x-axis, you have the economic importance of these different elements here, and then you have the supply risk on the y-axis. And you can see that we have rare earth elements, for example. We have phosphorus, as I talked to you about before. And then we have, if we go below here, we can see that down here we have the heavy metals. They are not so much in supply risk, but they are actually of economic importance. And here, some of those I'll talk about, that it will be zinc and lead, for example, and copper is also here. Now I cannot find it, but I know it's here. So these elements are either critical or they actually have economic importance. And these resources are lost at the current practices where we're backfilling these ashes into mines. This is not a very clear one, but it is, when I have given this presentation before, many people say, yeah, but we simply do recycle these already, you know, from now it's rare earth elements. We do recycle them already from our electronic waste. So why would it end up in the ashes? And I would just show you here, what you can see here, it's recycling input rate. And over here with 0 and 1, we have very many of the rare earth elements. So no, it's just something maybe it's something that we're dreaming of, that we're actually recycling these, because we are not. So we need to find out how to do it. We simply need to find out how do we get it out of our waste. And if it ends up in incineration, then the products ends up in incineration. Of course, they end up in the ashes. Before I go to rare earth elements, I would like to turn a bit into heavy metals. And I had a dream which did not come true here, but I had a dream that if we took samples throughout, this is another Danish incineration plant, if we took samples out of ashes, you know, throughout the plant, maybe there would be a concentration of some of the heavy metals by the end here in the APC residue. And this is the last part of the fly ash before we are adding anything. So I thought this could be very nice. And here you can see that maybe there was something into it. We have most zinc and lead, which I just chose to show here. We had most of this in the APC residue and also in the last parts of the fly acids, but you could not say that there was a good separation because we still have quite high concentrations in all the ashes. So this with separating it did not really work, but it is something that we could, if it could be optimized, then there might be something in it to collect the acid at different points. I didn't give up on it, even though this first test here did not prove to come through. What is done today is that if we have 1 ton of this fly ash, then there are different plants which can extract the salts from it. It could be NOAA, or it could be Stena Recycling, or it could also be, well, there are in the Nordic countries, I'm sure there must be others all over the world who can actually extract the salts here and valorize it. They can extract it to be very, very clean. Mount Shells, for example, in Sweden has a plant where it's extremely clean, the salt product that they can extract. So this, I think it's such a good idea to do it. After you have extracted the salt, the ash is actually also stabilized. Not totally, but the heavy metals are stabilized better due to carbonation and other reactions in the ash. But we still have a lot of metals and we have a lot of critical and important resources left. And there's a huge potential there to extract a lot of these if we develop the methods. And here, of course, again, I can see time is running very fast for me. I can see that I can show you here, this is another cell which we have used. Now you can see that I have 3 compartments here in this electrodielectric cell. And it is actually a combination between the 2 compartments where I have put an anode directly in the suspension, and a 3 compartment where I have it here at the anode in a separate compartment. And this is because we want to acidify it fast when we have a 2 compartment, but we also want to remove the anions. So this is why we combined it here. And in these ashes, there's a lot of chlorides, and we don't want it to stay here in the liquid or the ash suspension. So here are what we recently extracted from such an ash in different types of cell. I don't have time to go into it, but there's not so much difference anyway in these different cells. You can see that the zinc is coming out nicely with 80% of the zinc extracted, and the zinc concentration is the highest. Zinc is also a valuable resource, as we saw. So this is a quite good result to get all this zinc out. It is not so difficult to extract the zinc from these ashes. Much more difficult is it actually to extract copper. Copper is also extremely valuable, so we were very happy to see that we could actually optimize it and also approach 80% of extraction of phosphorus. Lead, you can see it's not so easy. We are working hard on lead now. It's not so easy to extract lead from these ashes, but there are room for improvements here, which we are really working on. And when I say we, it is him here. This is our PhD student who is working also on the ash cycle project. It's Gottfried, and he's working with extracted exactly this. But I would say that if I calculate these numbers here from my graph to the left into extracted concentrations per ton of ash, it's still like it's 1 kilo of copper and it's 1.5 kilo of lead. There's much more lead than copper. And then it's 25 to 30 kilos of zinc from 1 ton of this ash. So I think it's actually something that we should consider, since these do come with a very major environmental burden when we take them from nature, from mining. I cannot take this one. It's too far. I have too short time. So I'll just jump directly into the rare earth elements. And here I would just show you concentrations, some of the rare earth elements in a fly ash, which is the lower one, and in a bottom ash. And what you can see here is that, we have actually quite higher concentrations in the bottom ash than we have in the fly ash. And it's because they have they need very high temperatures to evaporate, and that's why they actually stay in the bottom ash. And these are quite high concentrations, and Huilin, who you can see here, she's a postdoc, and she's working hard to extract these. And the results that I show you, both this and then the next slide, it's results from Huilin. They are not even really published yet, so it's really, what should we call it? They are new, new from the lab, but it's we are in the phase of writing them through. And here you can see she used a 2-compartment cell like the one I used for the phosphorus. And here you can see the different rare earth elements in the fly ash and the different colors. She applied different current strengths to the experiments. And these were the first results we got, and we were really excited because take a look at it. It's really high extraction rates of these elements, these extremely important elements that we have here from this ash. So we are continuing this work. But this is so important to the electrification. Many of these elements are used in the green transition. So it's so important, and they are so scarce. So we should take good care of them. And I think to use ashes as mines, it could be a possibility. One thing I would say here is also that it might be that we should actually use incineration as a concentration of it. Even though I said we have high concentration, it's still quite low concentrations. But maybe if we were incinerating the products we knew had a relatively high concentration of rare earth elements alone and not with food and other stuff, then it might be that we could have even higher concentrations, that we could even have some very good product to mine. So what I've shown you is that we can actually we can extract it and we can separate it to some extent, but we really need, and that is what we're working on hardly now, is also we simply need to separate it into, we cannot have a soup with all the rare earth elements and all the other and a lot of other elements. Of course, we need to take it a step further. And I would say I was just reading some of our old papers the other day, where I tried to make a review of it. And I could say that here in 2003, we already said that we simply need to be able to concentrate the heavy metals. And there in the early part of the century, we also did some work. And this is what goes here to the left. It's copper. It's 98% pure copper, which we extracted in those days from soil. And we really worked hard to get it this clean. And I'm sure this is some of the most expensive copper you can ever find. But there are roots there. And now we're exploring them and trying to get it exactly like this to resources which are concentrated and are separated into groups which you can use. So this is my final one. It is this. I actually think we should learn how to mine these ashes because there is a huge potential. But I also think that we do carry a responsibility for the generations to come. So they still have resources left in nature to take, and we simply reuse and recycle those that we already took out. For example, as I talked about here, here it's copper. It could have been phosphorus, also a resource, and then use the rest of it in construction materials. So we are not also harvesting and emptying out all our clays and easy to get sand fractions. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you're with me still. And if you're interested in collaboration or have any interest here, I just put by here. You can see this is my email, and I'm off course at LinkedIn also. And then I would like to thank you once again, Krishna, because you gave me the opportunity to take a look into this together with you.
No, it's really excellent presentation. You have a lot of work done. Obviously, you could not show a lot of things, but people